interesting when I was listening to Michael Jones from Inspiring Philosophy with his talk on with Trent Horn, who's Catholic apologist on this subject. And one of the interesting things that they brought up is he said the impact that homophobia, or I should say homosexualism, pansexualism, the whole LGBTQ project going on has had on intimacy. If you go back to and look at like a lot of photos of like the 1890s and everything, guys get really close to each other. They're hanging on each other's shoulders. And I mean, they're doing things that, you know, you go, oh, I wonder if they're gay, you know, nowadays, because it's brought up so much in society. You have people going, well, did David and Jonathan have a gay, you know, lifestyle?
No.
You know, and they do the same thing with, you know, with was Abraham Lincoln gay because he had such a close friend? And it's because we had those intimate relationships back then that were so strong and valuable, and we don't. Now we have this shallow instance to where guys don't want to get too close because then, you know.
Yep.
I remember back in the 60s and 70s, guys used to throw their arm around each other and say, let's go do something.
It was being bros, yeah.
Yeah, just bros. Hey, bro, come on. Same thing with girls. We used to hug up on each other all the time, too. I mean, it's, you know, I put so little faith in the Catholic Church, though. Anyone who can say that there's more than one way to God, sorry, they've lost my interest.
That's kind of off topic, though.
That's the point, though, of the Catholic Church. So I put no regard into the Catholic Church at all.
Well, I didn't bring it up because I believed or put stock in anything. I'm just saying there were two people from both Protestant and one from Catholic, and they were both tackling the same issue.
Right.
Yeah. And they managed to do it without spitting on each other, which was a bonus.
Yep. Now, from the Christian perspective, hopefully people do as much as they can due to the influence and testing against Scripture. Patrick, I think I'm wanting to hand this off to you if you think you can handle it, because I just don't think I could do justice to it, and I think you'll know just exactly what I'll mean whenever I will ask you to kind of explain to us the meaning of arsenokoitai and the story behind that.
Okay, arsenokoitai in the Bible. It essentially it was familiar to Jews, less so to Gentiles, but it means a man better. In other words, a man who takes another man to bed as you would with a woman. And the history of it starts back with the Septuagint, which was after Alexander conquered the known world, the Jews got, just like everybody else, got really easy with speaking Greek. So they took 70 of their most top scholars, quarantined them off, and they argued for, I forget how many years, over putting the Old Testament into Greek scriptures. And when it came in the prohibition of the law, for a man shall not lie with a man because it's an abomination to the Lord, the word was chosen arsenokoitai, which basically means a man who beds another man. And prohibition has been there since, that time. Jesus didn't address homosexuality when he was around because he was an Orthodox Jew. He was speaking to other Orthodox Jews who knew the Old Testament and the scriptures better than anybody you could name on the planet right now. They knew it inside and out. They read it daily. They knew it, committed it to memory, including all the teachings of the rabbis. All right. They had all of those perfectly good knowledge of.
So in other words, you're getting at that we can't have an argument from science to where it's silence, right. Where if he didn't approve of it, then...
Right. And there's a lot of pastors who try and run up this saying through the language and everything that Paul didn't know about loving gay relationships in his day and age. Well, Plato knew and he wrote about them. Suetonius knew and he wrote about them. All right. There was there was a bunch of both early Greek and Roman authors who said, yeah, there are guys that prefer guys and there are women that prefer women. But what they tried to do is people have tried to turn the term arsenokoitai into a
pedophile
denotion of pedophilia. Man-boy love is what Paul was, quote, speaking out on. And he hasn't been. All right. He's strictly saying the act of one man taking another man to a bed is not natural. And that's what his whole theme in Romans 1 was, is that, you know what, that not only can you look around and you go, man, the cosmos is just absolutely impeccably made. And it's wonderful. It's huge. It's powerful. Wonder what created it. You're held accountable to that. And you're held about that you can look down at your sexual organs and go, hey, these are the perfect fit for sexual organs over there. And it produces a child. That's the natural state of things. And those things are what you're being held accountable to, those who aren't Jewish, who are basically Gentiles. And that's the theme in Romans. And when Paul uses that word, arsenokoitai, he's talking about man-to-man consensual love.
The reason I bring that up is because for some reason, people like to bring up in their argument that the word homosexuality is not in the Bible.
No, it isn't.
But
not the word homosexuality, but it's the man lying with.
Right.
Yeah, the terms that would explicitly define it are there. Yeah.
Actually,
I don't think homosexual, the term homosexual was actually.
There is a word for it in the Greek, isn't it? Leviticus. I was trying to look for it now. Right.
Effiant.
Right. That's what I looked up. Right.
EFFENT or something like that. Yeah, I have it too.
So there is a word for a man lying with a man in a way he would lie with a woman. That was
the ancient Greeks wrote about it long before the Septuagint was penned. I mean, it was fairly rampant in the Roman world, in the Greek world. If you really want to get into the nastiness of the history of, as a dad in the Roman Empire, you had complete control over your household. And I do mean complete control. Your kids married who you said they would marry. They did word over work that you demanded of them. Of your servants and slaves, you could demand sex of whatever kind you wanted at whatever time, and they had to give it. If you were a woman, you could not condemn somebody else for rape who was either equal or higher in standard than you were.
You'd get stoned.
All right? If you were above them and they rape you, now you can actually call it out rape. All right? Because your station is above them. So it's all based on authority.
Then you gotta love that honor society.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What do you mean?
That was the whole thing. If you were of a higher status of honor or whatever, then it would take somebody equal to you or above you to be able to condemn for things that was not blatantly obvious and witnessed by everybody.
Right.
I know Muslims will literally stone a woman if she
Julius Caesar used to take the wives of the senators whenever they had a party or dinner party. He'd take the wives of the senators and go sleep with them to show that, you know what, he's the top dog.
Yeah.
Now, to back out of all this stuff there, referring to that as a non-natural behavior that would be considered sinful, that does not necessarily mean it's the top-notch thing that you need to worry about. You got to remember, if we're going back to Christ talking, let's say, if you were to hate your brother or your neighbor, you're essentially guilty of murder.
Right.
So, which of the two do you think would be worse? I'd say murder might be up there a little ways.
Yeah. If you call your friend a fool, you're in danger of hellfire. Okay. I mean, it's kind of funny when you read some of these pastors and everything who said that Christ's grace is so much bigger than that. But Christ was the one who narrowed the law, so it was absolutely unlivable. I mean, he demanded things from the Jews that that Moses never would have dreamed of. Hey, you know what?
Yep.
If you look upon another woman with lust, you've already committed adultery. Or at least you're guilty of it in your heart.
Yep.
All right?
And you're saying who did that?
That was Jesus. That was Jesus' words on the Sermon on the Mount.
You know why they were his words? Because that's what it actually meant to begin with. If you think bad about your neighbor, you hate your neighbor, it's considered murder. You've already murdered your neighbor. If you look at another woman with lust, you have cheated and you have committed adultery.
Right.
All that is part of the original 10 Commandments.
But people can't judge off of that unless they can read another man's heart. You have the written law. You can't enforce the law based on thoughts.
The law is written on your heart.
I do not disagree with that, but for people to live by in a society, you cannot convict based off of their hearts because you cannot read their heart. You can only.
That's what y'all don't understand is the law is the same. We just have grace now, which doesn't mean that you have grace to go and purposely sin. It means that you have grace when you do screw up.
Well,
I wasn't arguing that.
I don't think anybody was.
But no, y'all are acting like the 10 Commandments is poop. It's poop. Dead and gone.
I didn't say that.
No, I didn't say that either.
No one said
the
that.
10 Commandments is still legitimate. It's still what we're supposed to. That's the commandments that he says. If you love me, keep my commandments.
His commandments is more than just the 10 that was written on the tablet, too.
Well, that's what y'all apparently don't understand. Well, you're talking about the Leviticus law. We're talking about
there is still there. We already went through this. There were still other moral laws that was not in the 10 Commandments.
And that's what I'm trying to say is love covers both sides of the 10 Commandments. The rest of the law is also covered from the 10 Commandments. And you got to remember that those laws, the Leviticus law, some were for priests, some were for women, some were for men, some were for kids. I mean, they were broken down, but every one of those laws is covered by the 10 Commandments.
Where's incest covered in the 10 Commandments? Where you can't marry your brother or sister. I mean, Abraham married his sister.
No, he didn't. He claimed that it was his sister.
No, it was his sister.
Okay, well, we read that differently.
Okay.
Well, I think the 10 Commandments are adultery, right?
Yeah,
10 Commandments covers adultery, yes.
Exactly.
It does not cover incest between siblings.
That would be adultery.
No.
Yeah, that would be adultery if they're married.
If they're married, it would not be adultery.
Okay, well, y'all were saying that Abraham was married to his wife or to his sister, right?
Yes, but there's but marriage are you arguing from the point that marriage would make incest plausible?
I'm arguing from the point that he told the people, I forgot where it was, I forgot the whole story with it, but that he told them that she was his sister,
which was true,
for the reason to protect her. And then God said something to the person who was fixing to have sex with her that was his wife.
Yeah, and when God exposed this to another king, because he used this line more than once, the king asked him, "Why would you do this evil thing upon me?" And he's like, and Abraham basically told him, "Well, she is my wife, but I didn't really lie to you because she's also my sister."
Right.
I don't think she was full-blooded sister. I think she was half-sister myself, but still.
He said that she actually is my sister from a different wife of my father's.
Yep. So Abraham used that line more than once, and he explained why the second time.
Okay, well, I'm reading it in Genesis right now. Abraham said, "Because I thought surely for the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. Yes, indeed, she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife."
Yep. That's basically saying that same dad, different mom.
Yep, and that's not covered by the 10 Commandments, but it is covered by laws of Moses afterwards.
Yeah.
And that
Well-
fits within the moral law.
Exactly.